Gun Maverick, everybody. All right. Welcome, welcome. So, I'm super hyped about this film. We were just kind of talking a little bit about it, and I think it hit some of us by surprise, like just how amazing and incredible and entertaining this film was. Jerry, I'd love to start with you. You've been on this journey all the way through since the original Top Gun. We're over 30 years now, and I think the first film means a lot to people. It's a classic. I think this film, a lot of people were really excited about it. Obviously, it means a lot to everyone around the world. What do you think it is about Top Gun that resonates so much with people around the world for the last 30 years plus?
It's always about the characters and the emotion. Everything else is a background. It's a terrific story. It's well acted, well directed, and it's got heart. It's got emotion. Everything else that we do that surrounds it makes it even more credible, because the way Joe did it and Tom did it, it's for real. They had to be in those jets. They were trained for 3 months to be in a jet. They went with 3 different aircraft before they got in the F-18. They worked so hard at it. So everybody put their heart and soul into this. Every frame of this movie went over and over again between Joe, Tom, and Q, our editors. So the filmmaking was something of love for all of us. We love making it. We love making it for audiences. And it's hard work, but when you do it in a way with love and passion, you get something like Top Gun every once in a while.
Joe, I think one of the hardest things to do these days is to make a sequel to a movie that came out in the 80s. The audience sensibility was so much different in the 80s than it is in 2022. I think audiences are sort of, look at, there's so much to watch these days, it's kind of like, impress me, And so how did you go about finding that balance between honoring the original Top Gun, bringing back some moments that were very memorable to us, but then also kind of pushing this forward, pushing the medium forward and delivering people an experience unlike any they've ever had before?
Well, we approached it, as a drama, wrapped in an action film, which is, I think, what the first film was. So we started from this emotional place of Maverick having to, reconcile this relationship with his wingman's son. That was kind of our guiding light for the story we wanted to tell. And then, I was a huge fan of the original film. I saw it when I was 11 years old, so I wanted the film to be able to sit next to the original Top Gun. I wanted to feel like Top Gun. I wanted to create this universe where the sun's always setting, everyone's beautiful and always slightly sweaty. Yeah, there's just, to kind of live in this world that Tony created and get to recreate it with, this cast and working with Jerry and Tom and finding a new way to shoot the aerials, because, the technology had finally reached a point where I thought we might be able to pull it off. It was, it was fun. It was a challenge, but it was fun to make this movie. It was, I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, without a doubt, you see it all over the screen. Miles, speaking of challenges, Miles has got the best stories about making this movie, by the way, but speaking of challenges, what was the greater challenge? Was it, training underwater, blindfolded, up in the planes, or was it like playing the piano and singing live in front of the whole cast?
I think the most fun for me was always when I landed. That was really always the most fun. I mean, it really was for, the footage that you guys are seeing, for every couple of seconds that you're seeing from each of the pilots, my character, Glenn's character, whoever it may be. There's so many hours in an F-18, and even just for reference, Glenn got his pilot's license after we finished filming, and it only took him about 2 weeks to get his pilot's license because we had all of the hours accumulated for it. It's more or less, it was like he had to pass a written test and do a couple of solo flights, but that's how much knowledge and how much practical flying that we had to do for this movie in preparation for it. With that being said, the piano beat, I was talking to Joe about this earlier, so we filmed it the first time, and it was on the bar, on the beach, the bar that we built, and all of the extras were actual, military members, and a lot of them were pilots, and they had no idea that I was going to play and sing Great Balls of Fire in the scene. They didn't know. And so I played it, and afterwards they were just cheering, and they're pounding these fake beers because they've just gotten lost in the moment, and they started chanting, "Brewster, Brewster," and I lost my mind. I legit, kind of blacked out for a second, and it was just so fun. I love those moments in films when a character gets a moment, like a Great Balls of Fire type of thing. That was something that I practiced for a long time. And then a couple weeks later, Joe calls me. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to reshoot it." And I was so upset. But that's how it goes in this business all the time. That was great. We're gonna have to do it again. And that was a lot of this film. And that's something that Tom is just a master of. You become a master of repetition. And Tom is just always striving for perfection in a lot of ways. And this movie, for me, there's 3.5 months of flight training, 8 months of principal photography, a little bit of additional, but not much. We pretty much, by the time we finished, we knew that we had the movie. But it was a year of production, and that was with flight training constantly, and the piano and the singing and all that stuff, and then a couple of weights here and there, because it's Top Gun. But it was, I really did underestimate everything that was going to be involved with this movie. I couldn't be happier, and it only comes from relentless hours, and that's just for the actor, where you come on board after guys like Joe and Jerry and Tom, they've been spending months and months and months trying to figure it out. So usually as the actor, you're kind of the last piece of the puzzle, but it's I'm just so proud to be a part of it.
Jennifer, I love the character of Penny. I think she's exceptionally well written. And what I love about her is that the most important thing to her in her life is that she's a mom, first and foremost. And I know you're a mom. And so I'm curious, what about your own experiences being a mom did you bring to the character and bring to the film?
Gosh, that's hard to say. I mean, I think it's impossible to tease those things apart because being a mom has shaped me so much. So, in ways that I can't even really understand, it informs everything that I do. It's kind of like, I feel like as actors, we use as our sort of materials, the things that we've experienced, we use our imaginations, but also the sort of fundamental things we're made of. That's what we do where we do our work from, so the love that I feel for my kids, of course, informs, the love that I bring to a character and the love that she might, that informs the way I might imagine a mother's love for her daughter in a film. But I think Penny's a really, I don't strive to bring my own experiences in a conscious way to the things that I do. I really think about them as separate people, and that's part of what I love about what we do, is getting to think about people who have different lives and different experiences and make different choices and take different paths. That's part of the beauty of what we do, I think, for me. So I love Penny, and I love the relationship she had with her daughter. I love that she was working on the relationship that she had with her daughter. I love so many things about her personality. I love that Penny is a character who has a sense of adventure, who wants to chart her own course, who isn't waiting for anyone, who's I feel like we know about them that they have this history together, and there was some unresolved business. Maybe not all that great. We kind of deduce from the first scene that Penny and Maverick have together, and I love it. I think it speaks so much about her character, the way she handles that, the sense of humor that she brings to it. She's someone who wants to have a good life and wants to have a sort of moving forward with happiness and joy. So those are, I didn't really focus on, think about myself and my life. I thought about her and the character, the characteristics that I loved about her, and made you kind of feel good about, because let's face it, Maverick is such a fantastic character, and you love him, and I think you kind of want to like the person that you feel like you might spend time with, you know, so I thought about those characteristics that she might have.
Yeah, but I also think it's great because she feels like a woman who it's like it's not the end of the world if they don't wind up together. Like it's no big deal. Like and I love that about the character.
Yeah, I feel like she, you know, she kind of knows where she's going, and she's not going to get derailed. You know, like if he wants to go that way too, great.
Yeah.
But if he's going to go someplace else, or she's going to
Absolutely.
go, you know, I feel like she's someone who's moving. She's moving to a good place in her life, and I love that about her.
Me too. Jerry, the very beginning of this film, I'm a child of the 80s, and you know, the Don Simpson Bruckheimer logo is at the beginning of this film, and when I was growing up and I would see that logo as a kid, I was always like, oh, this is going to be an awesome film because of the logo, and I feel like back then, like, logos did that to you, to like aspiring movie fans and movie lovers. I'd love to hear about kind of the choice to put the old logo in front of the film and sort of what the legacy of that relationship and how it continues to inform the work that you're making today.
Well, Don was such a force in getting the first Top Gun made, and he was a brilliant guy. He was a great, great force of energy to make things happen. Nothing stood in his way. If he wanted to do something, he'd walk through doors, he'd do whatever he had to do to get it done. And that's what it takes as a producer. You really have to go out there, believe in what you like and what you want to show an audience, and Don had it in spades. And he's a great storyteller. He's somebody who understood character and story and theme. So he was so instrumental in shaping the first script and working with Tony and Tom. It's something that I've kept with me ever since he's been gone. He's still with me. So he was a very close friend and a terrific individual and brilliant. So I miss him every day, and at least we got his name on the screen, but he's still with me all the time and with all of us.
You know, Joe, this every shot in this film feels like it was like a Mission Impossible, so to speak. Like it just kind of, there's so many amazing techniques that in this movie. Was there a sequence or a shot that you were like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's keeping you up at night, and then like when you finally pulled it off, you felt like a champion.
Well, most people can't believe it, but the hardest scene to really achieve was the sailing scene.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an awesome scene. Penny's a badass in
Yeah,
that scene.
and Jen is so great in it, but that's one of those scenes where, you know, it was actually, we tried to shoot it the very first day of photography, and we spent the whole afternoon on dead calm waters. Me, Jen, and Tom. Tom kind of snoring loudly on purpose, just to show how bored he was because there was no action, right? Nothing was happening.
There were dolphins.
Yeah, there were dolphins, but there was, yeah. So we tried again in San Diego. That was in LA. Then we went to San Diego and tried to shoot it again a couple weeks later. Again, no wind, just nothing. We had a little motor on the boat. We tried to drive. It was really pathetic. It was terrible. So we changed strategies. We got a different boat, which was much faster, and we went to San Francisco, to the bay, which we were told is always windy, and we had 20 knots blowing, and it was epic. I mean, it was windier than I think I ever expected, and we shot that whole scene in 2 days that you see in the film.
And that's Jennifer. You're driving that ship.
Jennifer's steering. Tom is when he stumbles on the deck. That's real. No,
I don't know if Tom would admit to that.
Was that a fun scene, Jennifer, to kind of see like Tom?
It was amazing. It was so much fun. I was so nervous, I have to say, because I thought, oh gosh, I can't. You know, I gotta sail the boat and the wind and the ropes and everything and remember my lines. And I was like, you know, Tom set such a high bar. I just felt like you can't be the person to, you know, you can't drop the ball. You cannot let him down. I was so terrified that with everything going on and all the distractions, I was gonna like, you know, forget one of my lines. I actually found myself standing at a coffee table in my house running my lines with my children. I was like, just throw water at me, throw things at me. I was running my lines. They were literally, I had video of it somewhere. Throwing stuff at me, spraying water on me. And then the crazy thing is I got into the trailer in the morning and Tom comes in and goes, Jen, so we rewrote the lines. But it was great. It was an amazing and really fun challenge. I practiced where I was taking a lot of sailing lessons here in the East River, which is a very interesting place to learn to sail.
Very interesting. Penny should have had a call sign after that scene. Like, you should have just given her like an honorary call sign after that scene. Miles, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're an actor who's a fan of playing men in service of their country, playing men in service of their community. I think of films like Thank You for Your Service. I think of films like Only the Brave, where you play a firefighter, directed by this gentleman, also starring Jennifer Connelly, and Top Gun. And you know, what are you drawn to when it comes to playing men in service, and why is that? Why is it important to you to play these men?
Well, happy Veterans Day to anybody who
Yeah,
has a relationship with somebody veteran. It's interesting because I think Tom and I actually both had that in common. Tom would always say to lead is to serve, and that's something that I, wholeheartedly agree with. I mean, I guess it's kind of an East Coast mutt. I was in South Jersey for a long time, and then we moved to a town in Florida, a very small town, and the recruiters would be at lunch and this and that. And it runs in my family, and some of my closest friends are active duty, but I just think there's something to be, there's just something to be said about sacrifice and being a link on a chain. I remember Marcus Luttrell, I went to his, presentation that he did, and he said, I never wanted to be that guy in the ring going one-on-one. He's like, I felt strong because I had this guy to the left of me and the guy to the right of me. Even just growing up playing in bands, playing in symphonies, playing sports, to me I've always, and even just with theater, being a part of an ensemble has always meant something. To be able to put on a uniform, that's something that I don't take lightly. You almost feel, the imposter syndrome and stolen valor. That's certainly there in the beginning, but when you get the opportunity to represent those men and women, yeah, I take it with a great, in the highest regard. So it's something where I've been lucky to be able to kind of represent, and I feel like I have a good foundation for it, having friends and family that have served. But yeah, I like those stories. I really do. I think the story Joe and I did about the wildland firefighters who lost their life. They're not protecting themselves. They're out there putting their life in line to try to protect your property or protect your family. And I just think those are the best people that put that kind of mission above themselves. So yeah, I think naturally throughout your career, hopefully, if you can find some stories that connect to something in your own personal life that you believe in, then you're lucky, because at the end of the day, we're not songwriters. I'm not writing my own material. I've gotten lucky where somebody like Joe has presented me with something time and time again, actually, that has really spoken to me. So it's just something that I do feel passionately about.
And you guys aren't making this film in a bubble, right? You're on aircraft carriers with active servicemen and women alongside of you, kind of doing their jobs as you're making this movie. I mean, when you're in a situation like that, how much does it add to sort of the entire experience? And what did they bring to sort of the film from a performance standpoint? And then also, Joe, for you as a director, I mean, what did those military servicemen and women bring to you?
Well, for a movie like this, even though you're not playing real people, essentially, you are representing them, and these are real jobs that these people carry. They've committed their life to this service, and I think as long as I think you feel very foolish if you don't care about it and you haven't put the preparation in. And for being on the carrier and you sit and you talk with them, or when you're playing a naval aviator and you're playing a Top Gun pilot, it's only going to serve you to really try and immerse yourself in this world. And And so it just adds to it. I think anytime you can sit and talk with the real thing, that's just going to really help. And I know all of us, it starts with, at the top, especially with Tom, he knows the right way to do this. He's not gonna make a fool of anybody. It means a lot to him to make them proud. And I think you always want to make the people that you're representing proud. You're making it for really a small community in the beginning, and then, hopefully, and it kind of goes from there. But Jerry can, when they first got the fighter pilots, they look very cool, and they just look so, badass and this and that. But then you really start to figure out what it's like to do this job, and then it becomes a drama, and then it becomes emotional, and then people can connect because they all have families. And so for me, that's always been the thing, to be able to really try and understand it on as much of a personal level as I can before I try and perform it.
Yeah, I mean, how valuable is it to have the servicemen and women be this much of a part of the film?
Well, we couldn't have made it without them, obviously. But they were so into this. On the first movie, we went to North Island, Miramar, where the Top Gun school was housed at the time, and the Admiral wanted to have no part of us. It could only hurt his career if something happened. So Tom and I flew to Washington, met with the Secretary of the Navy, John Lehman. And Tom tells his passion for making this movie, and we talk about what the story is. And John said, "Here's my home phone number. If anybody gives you any trouble, you call me." He understood what it would do for the Navy. The Admiral at North Island, Miramar, was removed. And they were cooperating with us, but not with the kind of energy that we got on the second one. Because the recruiting went up 500% after the first Top Gun came out. So the Navy understood what this could mean for them, especially at a time where they need more recruits, where their funding's gone way down. A lot of the planes, when we were there, only a third of them worked. They just didn't have the money to buy the parts. That's changed now. But still, it's so good for them to be represented in a movie like this, and the military understood that this time. So they were really respectful and terrific to work with. And what they found is that our actors work so hard to become these pilots and to represent them properly. They can tell you what they went through in these planes. I mean, Miles, you should tell what happened and how you had to train for this, to do this. And they were training with the pilots. They went through underwater, rescue, and all these different things that they had to do. Plus, they were flying with these great pilots, the best the Navy has. And they were handling the Gs. They were doing it 2-3 times a day. A G-force of 7 is like 7 times your body weight. So Miles can tell you what it took, the toll on his body every time he went up.
And then they can calculate my weight at the time, and I'm not comfortable with that. Honestly, you only get shots like this if you work, if you, being able to do it practically, we trained for 3.5 months, and then we were flying almost every day. And for some of the actors, they were puking almost every time they went up. And that's,
you though, right?
I never did, but what they said, it's literally just like you either can deal with it or you can't. The amount of training is not going to change it, but we were doing something every day, and that's what I would say. I'm like, man, this is, we're just actors, but at the same time, to make this movie, you're a fighter pilot, and you would have to do something every day that made you want to puke, and in some cases you would puke, and you would get back to base, and then they would look at the footage and they would say, oh, the sun wasn't right up, your visor was too foggy up, your eye line that's not going to match, and you would have to do it again. And that is we weren't staying in houses, we stayed on naval bases. Everywhere we shot, we were on a naval base, and we were living like somebody in the Navy, and then we were on a carrier, and we just kind of jumped from naval base to naval base to naval base. And it was really, I don't know, I finished the movie and I was like, I think I'm a boat guy. I want a boat. It doesn't even need to go fast. I just want like a chill boat for me and my friend. But this will never be matched again. What we were able to accomplish is really incredible.
And one thing I want to add is all the footage, the reason the footage looks so great in the movie is because Top Gun pilots flew all the planes for us. So those are real Top Gun pilots in the front seat flying all the footage. Every time you see Phoenix flying a jet, she's being flown by a female Top Gun pilot. So without them, they're the best aviators in the world, and I think they finally got a chance to show that.
That's amazing. Do you put yourself through any of what the actors put themselves through?
No, I'm busy.
Understand
I'm busy.
that?
I've got a lot of prep to do, a lot of storyboards. Very busy meetings every day, but I'm glad Miles did both his reports.
Jennifer, I want to talk about the Tom of it all for a minute, because I love the banter in this film between you and Tom. The balance of the character is Penny is able to give it to him, but she also lets him in too at the same time, and there's a really nice balance there. I think some of the most romantic scenes, in my opinion, in movies are the ones where there's nobody speaking. And I think when Penny leaves the door open in this film, I think it's one of the most romantic scenes in a movie that I've seen in a long time. I love that moment. Curious to know the story of that moment, but I'm also curious to know, like, working with Tom and working on that banter and that. How much did you work on it, and what was that experience like?
Well, I would love to take credit for it, but I didn't write it. But there were a lot of conversations about it. It was a very collaborative process. I think that there were conversations between Joe and Jerry and Tom and Macquarie, and they really refined those scenes and thought about them, and we would film things and then sometimes revisit things, and it was really an amazing process for me, and I was really so I was so grateful to be part of it, and it was so interesting for me to watch them refine that story. And refine those relationships, and I was so grateful that the extent to which they allowed me into that collaboration. It was really a wonderful process, and Tom drove a lot of that, I think. I think that he's so smart with story and with character. So it was wonderful working with him on that, and I really loved watching the way he continued to refine that and that storyline and those relationships, and the extent to which he never took anything for granted. He never took for granted that people would love his character. He never took for granted that people would want them to be together. So I felt like in every single moment, he was fighting to refine things and make them take advantage of every single opportunity that he had, every moment of film that we had. So it was extraordinary to witness that and be part of that. And I love those moments. I love those moments where then, we would talk about things and look at things, and there would be scenes written, and then maybe we don't need that line, maybe we don't need that line, and then, maybe we actually should just refine this to the sort of the core of what it is, which is just a look or a gesture between them.
And it just feels so effortless, and to know that the details are so important, are just pretty amazing. Joe, there is so much emotion in this film. I told them beforehand that I was crying at the end for 10 minutes, and I had to stay in my seat so nobody saw me. A lot of that emotion also comes from Val Kilmer, who was here, and talk about the journey of just bringing Val into this film and how much his character means to the film.
Well, Iceman is, a very important character. If you remember in the first film, it was the antagonist who becomes Maverick's friend at the end of the film. So we love the idea that Iceman is this kind of guardian angel for Maverick through his whole career. And when we started talking about the film, Tom really wanted Val to be a part of it. Jerry and I did as well. We knew Val had been struggling with a serious illness, so we invited Val in to Jerry's office to talk to him about the movie, and it was Val who came up with the idea of Iceman being sick in the film, which I thought was a very brave thing for him to do, and it really unlocked the whole Iceman story for us. So that started with Val, and I think they have so much respect for each other as actors, having known each other for 30 years. They haven't worked together since the first Top Gun. So I think what you see in that film, or in that scene between Iceman and Maverick, is very genuine. Jerry and I remember sitting with Jerry on the set that day when we shot that scene. It did not take a lot of takes. It happened, I think it was on the first take, is what's in the film. It was so genuine and emotional and real. the love between these two men, and the friendship, it really shows.
I think it's exceptional. You know, as we begin to wrap up, Jerry, I don't know how many folks, audiences you've spoken to since this film has come out, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but this film has become a phenomenon. This film won the box office Memorial Day weekend. It won the box office Labor Day weekend. I'm not sure that has ever happened in the history of movies. This is the most. It has not. This is the most successful film Tom Cruise has made. I mean, this movie is amazing and exceptional. And Jerry, since this film has come out, what does it mean to you? You have such a storied career. You were there with Tom at the very beginning of his career, and you're with him here with the biggest success of his career. What has the response of this film meant to you?
Well, first of all, what it's meant to the industry. Large part of our audience that came out to see Top Gun had not seen a movie in at least 2 years. So we brought a large audience back from 8 to 80 to the cinemas, to theaters, around the world. It's not just a movie for this country. Our grosses, foreign, were larger than our grosses in this country. So this is a movie that brought people together. It's not a red state or a blue state. It's a movie for everybody. And everybody enjoyed it, and they will continue to enjoy it. It was #1 in the theaters one weekend and #1 on streaming. It set all kinds of records on streaming after being in the theaters for 23 weeks. It's unheard of today. The movie could last that long in the theaters. And it's because of the expertise of Tom Cruise, these people on the stage with me, and all the wonderful technicians who work in our industry and work so hard in this movie to make it as good as it is. And that's what we all want. We want people to watch movies in their homes. We want them to be able to go to the theaters and enjoy something. And it gave the industry the power to say, we can make movies now for theaters and for streaming. And it has a place for both. Sometimes at the same time, like this one was. It can be in the theaters and be enormous, and be on streaming and be enormous. So it is helpful for anybody who's in the film business or is in entertainment to show that a movie, when you do it right, it shows the brilliance of the people who work on it and the brilliance of the people in this industry.
I'd like to say, you know, as divided as it may appear to be, as we are as a country, there is always something that brings together. An awesome movie, an awesome movie-going experience will always bring us together. Thank you so much for bringing Top Gun Maverick. Seriously.